And now I'm talking to Eoghan Rice from Trócaire. Eoghan, could you tell us why you're here and why Trócaire are here, please?
Trócaire is here because climate change is one of the biggest drivers of poverty and hunger in the world right now. We're seeing the effects in a lot of the countries we work in. For example, in the east and south of Africa at the moment, there's millions of people suffering drought and food shortages because of drought. I was in Malawi 3 weeks ago, and there's nearly 3 million people in Malawi who don't have enough food to eat at the moment because of a drought there. So it's a growing problem, and what we're here to say to our own politicians and the politicians around the world meeting in Paris is that if we don't take action now, it's only going to get worse. We can't keep long fingering this problem. We need to do something about it now.
And you think like it's in the Western world, in Ireland and the Western world generally, people, like most people are not really not that motivated to do anything about it because you don't really see the effects in Ireland, do you, in the Western world? Yeah,
I think awareness about it is growing, you know. I think a lot of people, the term maybe still confuses some people and they've heard about it for years and they're not really sure whether it's happening now or whether it's something we should be worried about in the future. But what we're saying is that it is something we should be worried about now because we're seeing droughts, we're seeing storms, we're seeing floods. Even in Ireland, the amount of flooding in the last maybe 5 years is huge compared to what we used to get historically. So I think awareness is growing, and you can even see at the march now, we've got a really good crowd here in Dublin. So this is something people care about, and we want politicians to follow that lead, really.
And now I'm talking to Oisín Coghlan from Friends of the Earth. Oisín, could you tell us why you and Friends of the Earth are here, please? Could you tell us a bit about Friends of the Earth first, please?
So Friends of the Earth is an international environmental organisation, a network of grassroots environmentalists around the world with 2 million supporters and activists in 75 countries. And in Ireland, we're part of Stop Climate Chaos, which has organised this march, which sees thousands of the people on the streets today in Dublin calling on Ireland to do its fair share to contain climate change.
Yeah, and are you hopeful that there'll be good news coming out of the negotiations in Paris?
Well, I think there'll be a deal in Paris. It won't be strong enough to do what we needed to do on climate change, which is why we need people power, really, to take action, to force our governments to do more and to take action ourselves on issues like community energy, both reducing our energy use as a communities and getting involved in generating our own energy, no longer leaving it to our leaders. We think Ireland can become a place where lots of people get their energy from solar electricity with a little help from the government. We can see every clubhouse, every green school, every parish hall having solar panels on the roofs and for electricity and also making money from it. So that's the future, we think.
Yeah, there has been a growth in solar power usage, but why do you think there's not, we should all be using it, shouldn't we?
The big gap in Ireland is that there's no payment for solar electricity. So if you put a solar panel on your roof for electricity, you can fire your kettle or you can fire your tumble dryer, and after that all of it goes for free to the ESB and to EirGrid. So there needs to be a minimum payment, a guaranteed price, and then it becomes worthwhile for schools and clubhouses and parish halls to do solar properly.
And finally, what's your message today to our listeners from Friends of the Earth?
Talk to your politicians about climate change. They're going to be calling to your door in the next 6 weeks, 3 months. They always tell us they don't hear people mention climate change in the door. Tell them you're concerned about climate change and tell them you want Ireland to do its fair share.
Constantio, féidir the raw cén fá with Antonio.
Was toch mar ein annachid daoine tá mé burtha faoin éifeacht tá gahrú aeróide an planéid ach go thuircha socha tá sé le feicáil níos smú I réigiún Bochta agus cé go bhfuil an oversize costa agus orintha sé deacair de gná daoine hiiscin ceapan gur muidna an glún dearnach mes an réiteach teachta réiteach éigen ar an vibe. So sinna bhfuil go mé an seoinniu agus sé gohíntaach go daoine bailí ar fud na Cllr mé feirste in áileh a Kirky agus ar fud an dain aniu mar sé táhachtach teachtarach láidir a dhéanamh dus na polytóirí me sa balú a Boris a mórach.
Agus an bhfuil tú dóchasach go mé réiteach éigen sa chaintena an teachta sé hiún?
Well bhálam a bheith dóchasach ach tá sé deacair dhéanamh amach céco do riire sa bhfuil tíortha go generalta faoi athraithe dhéanamh. Tásúlagam go mé éifeacht éigen tá ag an mrú an phobal ach tá sé deacair orintha a bheith dóchasach ach bhálam a bheith dóchasach go mé réiteach éigen an.
So can nach bheith tú an seomún a dóchas a haigh éigen?
Sin é caafar a bheith dóchasach agus caafar a bheith gníomhach freisin mar agus bfuil muid dul a ráig be na 5 muine lethir aeróide a gaiirí nolcas gar níos smasa. So so caiimiid a bheith so caiimiid so dearfach agin, mar is féidir lín ahrú a dhéanamh ach níl mór am a focaí chun na ahrú sin dhéanamh. I'm here today because I feel that climate change is a really important issue and it is affecting us all. Even though we might not be able to see it or feel it or hear it, it is affecting people here, but more importantly at the moment it's affecting people in the most poorest of countries who are really feeling the effects. So I think it's important for people around the world to show solidarity with those who are being hit the hardest. Often it's the poorest communities who are being really hardly hit by extreme weather events. So I'm here today to show that Irish people do care about climate change and they want leaders who are gathering in Paris for the talks to show action. We need them to do a really good deal, to make a strong deal and to follow through on it, because otherwise it's all our future that is at stake.
And this time we kind of David Healy on going to Glas agus ó Oxfam. Tá tú an seo in New Harcown and gá agriach an bhfuil?
Well, tá mé an seo Harcown Oxfam os redig I bríon le Oxfam marall ahróid ach dar nói is bail mé de cúpla agriach déile tá an seo freisin Queen's Glas Dublin cycling campaign mar hampla freisin.
Agus tá tú mar cóir in gálan is nach bhfuil?
Tá mé cóir chun na gáil de counter beannéidir malachíte.
Cad a hála, bhí tú a cóir cúg bliain ó hinna sin cáil tú a sécam sin fé agus an sin fórtú é arás a rís an táhair se gohate.
Sin é dúirc, amach agus arás.
Agus chunas mar tágáil leat an nóir seo I bhín gá.
Well, táid ag gibrúir ar an ábhar céine is dócha agus go háiritá ag chur an béim ar ahróid, so ag géirí fiosachar ar an plán forbe tá á chur le chéile faoi láthair ag an gunta. Agus tá mé géirí go méid sé sin bunthe agus tíortha go láidir ar ahróid ar iúnú den ahrú atá ag teacht agus ar íslú aisteáin an chunta.
Agus an síl tú an macóir dúna bheith dóchasach faoi na caiintena I baras mór ach an teacht sé heann.
Well, bhíne le tá mó eile ag na caiintena seo tá sé difriúil an na caiintena a hepa I Copenhagen sé bhbliain ó hin. Ní féidir ará gur make or break atá ann. Tá ois going hena cadíd na galantí atá tócha ag na tíortha agsúla agus ois going nach lóríd agus go bhfuil míide ar bailach I dro timpealar 3 céim so ardú 3 céim Celsius os ceann an gná teocht damda agus so níl míad ar an bailach ceart sé an ceistetá ná cadí enimiid chun an bailach ceart a áil nó caihan a bheith cruinethe eile chun ahrú a dhéanamh ar na galantí chun ardú a churthú.
Was sé fér chun a rá go bhfuil na torthaí ó ahrú aráide le feicáil dearthe timpeall a cruine satá nniuan?
Tá sé sin an Cllr de rinne an IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, tuairis gan bhór gá bhbliain ó hin agus sin an tuairisce a tháinig uthú agus sin an consensus ón ólaíocht.
Agus deirtar go mé na milliún daoine ag fágáil a deartha hain do bhar an ardú in san aimsire an Green
so tá na milliún daoine ag bog a hana agus an cuid is módáid tá sé ag bog a taobh sicht an tír ar lósan ná dar nói nuair a bhfuil an tír atá acu có beag na có plódathe gur réigean dóibh teána a thrasnú tá sé beidir I bhfad níos soiche agus níos costó heh políochta ach tá na daine ag bag a hana agus go háirithe áitina a bhfuil ag folingt ag caiúint talamh áitina san ind agus I Bangladesh mar hampla.
So tá sé caiú Bangladesh aon tíortha
Bangladesh agus an ind cinnte tá bailtí á réigean ag daoine. Na céad Eoghan a bhfuil fácha is Eoghan Papua New Guinea atá siad. So díreach mar na Eoghan beaga mar cloisiméid san Pacific Kiribati agus a riile. Tá na Eoghan seo is cuid de mórthaoiríd agus dá bhrí sin tá siad bogtha hana go dtí bailtí nua Ilan níos mó.
Just mar ceisiarnach cadí an teachtra go bhíon at a thuirse amachta ar éistóirí agus do daoine go súla Donald Trump agus an Party Publicánach sa Stát Aontaithe a creideann nach bhfuil ahrú ráide ag tarnú le.
Well, it's Jacker dí spáirc daoine nach creideann na fearchaí, you know, agus like sin ceist an a himúil cén cuoin ar féidir le daoine áideúirt ar an fhadhb nuair is léir go bhfuil sé ann. Agus tá buir an go taon daoine ó bheith ag héanú gur bhfuil fadhb ann, go dtíar go dtí an puinte nuair ghlacha siad go bhfuil fadhb ann, dearann siad bhfuil ní féidir anmhair dhéanamh faoi. So began doing Iberar is féidirling inis dulling lech leis an aib. Iarú dhéanamh cuairthirt na daoine I dtír eile a bhfuil ag folingt agus cabharthirt dóibh na choras atá acu ahrú choras talmhaíocht agus choras isce agus gachsáis rud agus is féidir airí asan an na broslí iontaise go dtí fuinneamh inach nuachna.
And now I'm talking to David Healy from the Green Party. David, how's it going? Dave, could you tell us why you're here? You're here today on behalf of the Green Party and Oxfam, or just one or two of them?
Well, I suppose a few of them, and the cycling campaign is here as well, that I'm also a member of. So, I mean, Oxfam as a development organisation is very concerned about climate change, as are other development organisations, and so we work together in Stop Climate Chaos as a kind of a coalition on climate change issues.
Yeah, and this march is happening all over the world today, isn't it?
It is there. Today and yesterday there are marches in hundreds of cities around the world about climate change, so you know, hundreds of thousands of people are showing their determination.
And are you hopeful that there will be a good agreement coming out of Paris?
Well, what we know at the moment is that Paris won't bring about sufficient reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. So the two big questions for the negotiators in Paris are, first of all, will they put in place a mechanism to step up the emission reductions after Paris to bring about, you know, stronger commitments, and secondly, will they supply climate finance to help developing countries cope with the effects of the climate change they're already experiencing.
So if there isn't going to be adequate agreement in Paris, what are the other what's the other opportunities we have, like, to sort it out, do you know?
So the idea is that we've got these commitments that have already been made over the last year. We know that they're putting us on a more or less a 3 degrees, a 2.7 to 3 degree pathway. We have committed globally that we should be on a 2 degree pathway, and indeed many of the small island states are saying we should be on 1.5 degrees. So what's needed to be agreed in Paris is how will we come back to reducing the emissions, to making greater commitments in the future.
And is it true that it's China and India causing most of the pollution in the world?
No, well, it's true that historically it's the developed countries which have caused most of the pollution, and now as other countries become developed and as they industrialise, their emissions are rising. But the historical responsibility lies with countries in North America, in Europe.
But in this last question, like, some people say that in Ireland we don't cause much pollution, like, and it's mainly China and it could be maybe America as well. They're so big, like. But some people say we haven't really got much of a responsibility in Ireland. What would you say to that, like?
Well, of course, with 7 billion people on the planet, each of us has an equal share of the responsibility. And so the question isn't how big is the country, but the question is how big is you know, each person's emission, and what's the emissions per million people in a country. And if you look at it that way, Ireland is one of the big emitters. We have a very high emissions per capita, up there, you know, with other developed countries, and therefore we are responsible.